episode 20, South Dakota Podcast.
20 episodes.
20 episodes. Can you believe it?
Well,
Yes.
that didn't take long at all.
No, it didn't.
What, a year?
Yeah. A year.
Well, it's a bi-weekly podcast, so actually that's pretty
That's actually, we have actually stuck to this. We've had a lot of breaks in there, too.
Yeah. Well, you keep having children.
Well, you know, we got to have a hobby.
More kids?
Just one more. More kid.
You got 2 kids
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
You're still at 1, right?
Yeah, that I know of.
I know. I don't get calls on Father's Day. It's nice.
How old's your child?
5. She'll start kindergarten in 3 weeks. So she's ready for it.
Are you ready
We're
for
filling
it?
out all the government forms. She hasn't been in like traditional preschool or anything like that, so this is kind of her first.
She's been flying off the radar.
Yeah,
Does she have a social security number?
Yeah, she does. I think so. We smuggled her in. But no, so it's kind of like it's our first introduction into like opening our lives to government with our children, you know, because she's going to go to public school. So
Poor kid.
it's like,
I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, I was trying to
But they're
show-
getting new and improved.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably introduce our guests. Of course, we have Robert, the producer.
Hello.
We have the host whose name we will not speak. And then we have Joe Sneve.
You get that right?
I got it right.
Snevey?
It's Sneve.
It is Snevey.
Yeah, I got it right, finally.
Is it Joe Snevey?
Snevey.
Snap.
Snap.
He is from the newspaper whose name we will not speak.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, we have a rule against that bullshit in here. It's the Argus leader.
It's the Argus leader, sorry.
Yeah, that radio host who won't say the Argus leader's name, he's been better about at least giving the reporters credit when he's talking about Argus leader content.
Yeah. Have you ever heard his reasoning for not saying the name?
I feel like I've been told why, but he didn't get along with.
He
one of
thinks
the
it's
publishers
funny.
back
He
in
thinks
the
it's
day.
funny. It's a Harry Potter bit. He said it on air. That's the only reason.
Really? I
He
thought
goes-
it's because
he
he
goes-
had friction with one of the former publishers a few years back,
Oh, Greg? Really? Greg didn't get along with someone? That's
like
a shock.
Randall Beck or something like that. But
They must have spelled too many words right.
Oh, this is. Greg doesn't write that.
Let me just saw my post the other day. They spelled today, Todey, on the website.
wow.
And I was laughing. And I always tease Teresa Staley because I'm like, do you ever read, like, the stories when they're talking about you? They spell your last name, like, multiple different ways. It's like they just take a stab at it. It's like a couple more E's in here, or maybe an L-E-Y, and it's like...
Well, it never ends up in print for them, so they can always go back in and change. Yeah, there's not as much, probably.
Well, there was a
Front end
professor up
stuff.
at SDSU at the journalism school that if you spelled somebody's name wrong in a story, he'd fail you.
Yeah.
It's kind of a... I know
won't
my...
even continue reading. It's
Do you
enough.
remember the name of the professor?
I don't.
I know my grammar's not the best, and I know I misspell words, but I am kind of a stickler about spelling people's names right.
Me word good.
Yeah, and I just like to,
Well, it's
because
kind
I
of
don't
insulting
want that
to people.
something them to come back at me. You know, my favorite's been watching how many different ways people have been spelling Darren Ketchum's name.
Yeah, I just said ketchup most of the time.
Yeah.
But
No, well, the last and the first, but no one knows how to spell it. He's got a weird Darren spelling. But
well, it threw everybody for a loop too because he replaced the Darren, right?
Yeah.
Darren Smith,
Oh, that's
Darren
always
Ketchum.
chaos.
So it was like, which Darren spells his name this way? You know, for a long time I had to go back and look each time just to not make the mistake.
yeah,
Because the old Darren was Darrin, and this Darren is Darren.
yeah, which is really weird. I've never seen a D-A-R-E-N.
Reminds me, there were 2 Darrens on Bewitched. This just reminds me now of the old Wayne's World bit.
There's a
Dick York.
Yeah.
What was that? How did that go?
I don't know. I was thinking you were moving into
Dick York. Dick Sargent.
Yeah.
Sergeant York.
Sergeant Dick.
Yeah. Sergeant.
Anyway.
Well,
That's
before
my
we go
brother
into...
Darren, my other brother Darren.
There you go.
Yeah.
That one I know.
Well, before we go into city, I want to talk a little bit. I know this isn't your department and you don't write about this stuff, but you're in the newsroom. What do you think about the school district handling their own election for basically a $300 million bond? I mean, reality.
Right.
You don't have to agree with me on that or not.
But interest. I get where you're going with those posts.
What do you think of that? I mean, that's just insane. A standalone special election. And their claims are a joke, because their one claim is, well, we have to have the budget to the state by September 30th, which is true. That is not a lie. But it could be amended. Lally just flat out asked Brian Maher on his show, you can amend the budget at any time, though, can't you? And Brian's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have to have a special election. So you can have it with the general. Do you think they're feeling? I mean, you've seen enough elections in the city.
Turnout low.
Okay,
right, well,
but do you think that's a good strategy?
Well,
it depends on what you consider a victory. I
think they think that the only people that are going to come vote are the ones who support it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Probably not wrong. If it's a standalone election, I think that's. And I don't want to say that they have ulterior motives, because I don't talk to these people. I'm not covering this, but at first blush when I saw that was they're probably trying to keep turnout down. So.
That and which I still don't understand strategy.
And it does make budgeting easier.
Yeah. But also the other part of that is.
I was going to say that. Isn't there a state law that says if an special election is within 60 days of an already scheduled election, it should be moved to the scheduled election?
Is it 60 days though? See, it might not be 60 days.
I don't know.
No, but I mean,
right.
The 18th in November, is that 60 days? Would that be 60 days?
Pretty close.
Well, that's kind of my thing. Is it's like, why would you spend all this extra money when you could just do it in November? And then
Well, the alternatives have Bob Litz help.
Well, yeah.
Hey, he got the count in pretty early on primaries before everybody West River even.
But here's the other thing too.
Good this last time. I'll give him that.
The e-poll books don't work. Like the Hard Interactive doesn't software support them anymore. B-Pro tried to get them to work during the primaries, and it didn't work very good. And Chantel said, "No more. I'm not using them anymore." But they're going to use them. Well, who's running the software? How are they going to tabulate? They haven't called Bob. You know that, right? They have had no discussions with him whatsoever. No. They're going to handle the absentee. And you remember when they did that 2 years ago? If Bev Chase was at lunch, the door was locked and you couldn't vote. And it's like, no, that's not really how it works. You can't just... I just have a problem with hand counting, this going to be... This $300 million is going to be decided by 3,000 people. That's just insanity. Right. That doesn't make any sense.
You probably... I mean, obviously you always want a higher turnout in big things like this. But I mean, I don't feel comfortable enough saying I agree with you.
I do believe people support public education in our town, but they got to get a 60% passage. And maybe they're just thinking it's easier to get a 60% if not enough people vote. I don't know. It seems odd to me. It's almost like the way they talk. Anytime you see the superintendent or one of the task force people or one of the school board members talk, except for Cynthia Mickelson, she doesn't seem as confident. But anytime you hear some of the other ones talk, they just seem like they are perfectly confident that this is going to pass. Like they have no worries about it. And that's what worries me the most. It's like, what do they know that I don't know, like that they don't...
foregone conclusion.
Yeah. And it's like, because if the software doesn't work properly, explain this to our listeners, if the software doesn't work properly on an e-poll book, that means that I could go vote at every single super precinct. Right. I could vote 10 times, or they're going to be 12 or 15.
Because they're not communicating in real time.
Not communicating. So I could vote yes multiple times, and they're going to win. So that's the part that worries me the most, because who's checking this? Bev?
Right. But that also is counterintuitive to the argument that they want lower turnout, because voting super precincts or whatever, you can vote anywhere, so it takes another hurdle or burden off the voters.
I would say that using the super precincts or having you vote anywhere actually, I think, does drive turnout lower, because I think it sows confusion.
Yep.
People are used to voting in a precinct because they're used to voting.
Which
in
we've
big
been
elections.
trying to do now over the last couple of elections.
Well,
now all of a sudden we're going to go back to this stupid thing, and
I get your point. That's a good point.
A certain government, let's just put it to you this way, a certain government official that is not involved with the school district called a certain person over at the school district and basically said, you can't have Bev handle the absentee. She's not capable. And they decided to have her handle it anyway. So I think they want this all in their house, and that's the thing that worries me the most. Who's watching this?
Who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah, well, no, who's watching the election? Yeah, who's watching the election? Who's watching the
Will
election?
the Secretary of State have a role in overseeing this?
No,
or-
nobody.
Well, they ought to.
Yeah,
But
and-
it's a school. I mean, I get it.
Elections are elections.
Yeah, they ought to. Elections are elections, but every form of government is independent of the other forms of government. At least in terms of elections.
well, I've encouraged Bruce to ask to be an election judge. And he laughed. He says, I'll ask. But I don't know if they're going to let me, but I'll ask. And I've even thought about asking. And then the other thing, too, is, yeah, that would be nice. But I just don't know. I'm just not reassured that this is going to run as smooth as they think. I don't know. It seems it's being handled so weird. And then you have Vernon Brown, who's running up this other group, and you guys reported about this. You know, the treasurer is with the public school association, and she's not supposed to be really out there promoting it because that's kind of a conflict. And then you got Vernon, and then the girl's obviously is a baker. Her maiden name's a baker, and the bakers run all the bonds through their bank.
Yep.
And then you have Vernon Brown, who works for SDN, which is a conflict because they do tons of contracts with the school district.
There's a lot.
And it's like, it's all intermingled, and everyone keeps saying to me, what are you so worried about it for? They're nice people. I said, it doesn't matter if someone's nice or not. A conflict is something that's on paper.
Right.
It has nothing to do with their personality.
Well, we all know South Dakota doesn't have the most tight.
No ethics laws whatsoever.
We're planning on, all the task force members, however many people were on there, we're planning on watching them and their families to see, once they start building all these things, who's getting the contracts, are these contracts?
It's too late then, though.
related?
That's the problem.
Well, you at least hold them accountable at that point.
Well, I mean, couldn't you report on currently that here's the task force, here's historically what these people have done and the relationship that they've got with the school district or government in terms of previous contracts.
I think Bruce said it best. It's just another money scam.
You can get that out there ahead of time.
early, so they don't even try.
Right.
Yep.
Speaking of scams, you don't have to go too much into this because I know you're working on a story about it, but obviously they want to build a $230 million water plant, which is, that price tag is
$260 million.
200. Ooh, it went up a little bit, eh? And of course they want to do this through the infamous enterprise funds that Mr. Bucktooth and Bullcut created, former mayor, so that he could separate, have the
Is
second.
that Citizen Huther?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he could have, free up money in the second penny to pay mortgages down in entertainment places, and that was one of the reasons why it was done. But obviously, our water rates are going to go up. But this is what I've said to city councilors. We have all these cities around us who use our water treatment services, which is fine because they don't want to build their own water treatment plant. They're expensive, like $260 million. So they've been paying us, and they pay a higher rate, just so people know that what we pay for our sewer and water, what they pay us is a lot more, unless they're just screwing their citizens. I don't know, but my suggestion has been quadruple their rates, and if the cities don't like it, they can build their own treatment plant, and then it takes pressure off of ours. And the other argument I have with this thing is where are they getting their numbers? See, they have all these growth projections, and were you saying on the way over here the last census was in 2010?
I mean, and they do projections.
Yeah.
Throughout the interim, but
and we're at 80%. It just seems like it's a weird. They're just expecting us to grow, and we might not. We might start slowing down here in Sioux Falls. You never know. We're almost at our borders already. There's,
So I think of the $260 million, about $160 million of it would actually be spent out there at the water treatment facility. The other $100 million would be to upgrade the conveyance system, is what they call it, which is in town, your infrastructure. A lot of that would probably be in the core, where you have like clay pipes in some regard, So some of that seems pretty reasonable, I guess. But so let's say, that core work, that conveyance system was going to have to happen anyway. So let's just break that up to the facility stuff. It's $160 million. The plant that's out there right now was built in 1980, and they say, well, I got an old article from like 1981 saying.
So it's almost 40 years old.
So this thing only had a 20-year life expectancy when they built it. So they've got like 18 extra years on it.
And they've added on to it a lot.
Yeah, they've added a few, as technological advances or whatever.
Yeah.
So a big chunk of the $160 million is to renovate what's already there, and that seems reasonable.
It does.
Because it's old, But I don't have the numbers in front of me, but maybe like half of it is to build on, to add tankage and capacity and things like that. Like right now they have like 6 basins where they bring there's like 7 or 8 different steps where they filter out all the crap out of the water. It comes in black.
Bruce went out and filmed it. He filmed it one time, and he went through the whole process.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever watched our video on that.
But I was just out there. I got the same tour. Said 4 or 5 years ago they were only using 5 or 4 of these 6 basins. Now they're at 5. Once they get to 6, they have no room for capacity. So I'm not a mathematician or anything like that, but you can tell just by looking at what they're using out there that they are nearing capacity. It does base itself on the fact that the city's going to continue to grow, and like you're saying, that could fall off. But TJ Nelson in the mayor's office said, it hasn't, for a long time we've added over 1,000 people a year. Right now we're
5,000.
Now we're getting up to like 5,000.
Well, and
they can't bank on that falling off, right? Because if they reach capacity, it's going to take them like 12 years to complete this whole project.
Right.
So they have to start now. This is what they say. They have to start now, as opposed to waiting until they're at capacity, because it's going to take 12 years to catch up.
It seems like good governance.
It is.
My issue, and then you were mentioning this on the way over, is that there's a perpetuity of an increase in the water rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when Ten Aiken first announced this in his CIP...
Excuse me, who?
Ten Aiken?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that from last time I was here. You caught me up on it the last time. He said in his CIP that, because it was the biggest CIP ever, right? Like, Huther's biggest one ever was $500 and some million, and I was thinking we've got
this is the biggest CIP ever.
Huge.
It's huge.
We have
the cleanest water. It's going to be beautiful. You could drink the water. It'll be so clean.
That's pretty good.
We can drink it.
But I was thinking, we got a conservative Republican in City Hall now. We're going to see a scaled back budget. And then,
that's adorable.
And then I see this thing. I see this presentation, and the number's like $200 million more than anything I saw under Huther, and I'm like, holy cow. And if you take the water treatment plant out of it, it's less, but that's... But he said then, when he announced it, that we'd likely see some modest rate increases to pay for this. I haven't reported it yet. I'm not going to break the news here, but some folks might take issue with the categorizing them as modest increases. When you hear what those numbers are, I'm working on a story for Sunday's paper about some of this stuff, and we have a little bit more insight as to what the rate modeling will look like.
And I've heard a little bit too, and we don't have to go into that. My thing is that I understand the enterprise fund thing. You charge the users to do upgrades. I get that. But I also consider what we're doing out there as infrastructure, and that is what the second penny is supposed to be for. So I can understand us using the enterprise funds to build new pipes, maintenance, running the facility. But to say that we're going to pay the mortgage on this monster $260 $60 million right from the enterprise fund. That's not right. I like how you broke it up, how you said that $100 million's for this and $160 million's for this. I think we should break that in half and have the $100 million part of it be paid for out of the second penny, and then the $160 million paid for out of the enterprise funds, and break it apart and start using the second penny for its intention. Infrastructure. Capital. This is capital, this is infrastructure. Instead of just saying, we're going to raise everybody's water rates. That way we can free up the second penny to build palaces and monuments, And that's the problem I have with the enterprise. And the other thing is about the population growth. And I mentioned this to counselors, and Teresa's asked to have this broken down, and she hasn't been successful in getting this. I think it was in 2016, they figured we had about 5,000 people moved. 5,000 new people in Sioux Falls, let's just put it that way. 3,300 of them were babies that were born here. So that's not new people coming to Sioux Falls.
Babies drink water.
No, I know. I'm not saying babies don't drink water.
Actually.
What I'm saying is what she's saying
use a lot of
is
water.
break it down. Break this population growth down for that's what she wants. How many are senior citizens coming here to retire? How many of the people, like I said to her, how many people are that move to Sioux Falls each year that come from the towns that are using the treatments already? Brandon, Canton, T. How many are babies? How many are actual people actually moving here from someplace else, adult moving here? Break those numbers down, and then you could have a better understanding of what you really need. And I guess that's the way I look at it. But
some of what they're going to be doing out there is prompted by like federal regulations coming down the chute.
Well, yeah, I understand.
Wait. Slow down. Prompted by federal regulations coming down the chute. I seem to fully admit I didn't read any stories, but a series of tweets coming down where it would appear that in South Dakota, the federal regulations really don't matter, especially in permitting. Yeah,
we had a story about all these basically nitrate permits aren't being... Companies who discharge wastewater into the waters aren't being held to these standards that the EPA's put in place.
Well,
But they have until, according to the folks I've talked to, the city says that they have until a few more years to get compliance before the state's going to come crack the whip.
Well, you know what I did?
So the state's letting people get their ducks in order before.
But how long does the state have until the EPA starts coming down?
Well, who knows at this point?
Right.
But they gotta get smarter about it. Like last weekend, I tore all this asbestos insulation out of my basement, and I just threw it in the dumpster behind Get and Go.
You trucked it through town?
No, I live a couple blocks from Get and Go. I just drug it over there, threw it in the dumpster, and Get and Go.
You did?
Yeah,
Legit?
it worked out great.
I would not admit that. I would cut this whole segment out. I would cut this entire segment out.
I was being sarcastic.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Important
okay.
to note that.
So I taught you, lay it on thicker next time.
Yeah. I was carrying nuclear waste out of my basement. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just not really shocked, but that it's not the first time that this has kind of been in the news where a federal rule or regulation is decreed upon the land and state officials kind of like, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll take the money that comes with it, but we'll see if we enforce this for you.
South Dakota is so good.
Which leads me to Intrinsic, because the way I saw it is, like I said, I saw it on Twitter, and there was an exchange between a employee of the administration and an employee of the Argus leader about the story and where the truth lies and all of it. So we don't have to discuss that, but you had previously said, maybe here, maybe elsewhere, that the previous administration had stopped returning your phone calls.
Yeah.
And what is your sense of your thought, or your feelings in the early days of the new administration? Is the new boss the same as the old boss, or is your phone blowing up all the time?
No, it's definitely not. It's been kind of a night and day difference, I'll tell you.
There was a press conference today about the budget. What was that all about?
Yeah, well, it's embargoed. I can't talk about what we learned there.
He could go on his 9-day difference.
Embargo would be
quick.
you can't talk about it until after the budget address.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't there. He was in a meeting because somebody told me they had a meeting with him at that time. They emailed me last night. They were like, "What do you mean?"
He wasn't there, but his finance, HR, and TJ Nelson were there. And when they showed us the presentation.
Well, I'll embargo this to at least 8 o'clock tonight.
No, and that's, I think, I don't know if Huther got burned or something like that, but there seems to be just more trust in the media. Mm-hmm. If we say we'll honor an embargo, they don't have any reason to think we're going to not honor the embargo. I don't think anybody's violated one yet.
And generally, journalists are pretty good at honoring an embargo because you want to keep the source, right?
Yeah, you'll burn a bridge if you do that. So.
It's a two-way
I can call these folks up, and if there's something they don't want to talk about on record because it's just too hot or whatever, they'll say, "Look, we can't talk about this on record," and then we'll go talk off record. You know what I mean? Like, they're very forthright with me about what's going on, and it's just.
And they should be, because in my opinion, and I'm sure it's yours too. It's our government. We should be able to know everything.
Well, yeah,
and access is a First Amendment issue.
Yeah.
The people have a right to access and question the government as much as they have a right to say what they want about.
Well, and if you're not going to talk, it's better to at least explain why you're not talking, as opposed to letting the journalists' imaginations run wild. Like, why aren't these people talking? What are they trying to hide?
Joe,
but it could be a reasonable explanation.
Joe, we got $1 million.
Well, breaking news here. Breaking news. We just learned what Joe Sneve, what the Argus leader, does with the days that God gives him when nobody talks to him. His imagination runs wild. That's what you've decided to do with the days that God gave you.
So you just had a story come out this afternoon, so we could talk about this because it was online this afternoon. In case, go check it out.
Well, let me tell a story real quick about the differences between the administration. I had only been in Mayor Huther's office 2 times. And the whole time I covered him. And it wasn't until the first time I was ever in his office was in February or March of this year. And I started covering this city beat in 2014.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, this place is like a palace here. You got the blue carpet in there, and it was super nice." And I didn't know City Hall was so posh. And then I'd gone back. I had seen.
I think the mayor's office is ugly,
whatever.
Actually, but whatever.
So fast forward to the new administration, and Ten Haken's secretary Julie was Huther's secretary.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of awkward when you go in there because it's like, "Hey, Julie, I'm here to see.
I'm here to see us honor
TJ Nelson," and she's like, "Okay." So she calls back, hangs up the phone, and says, "You can go back. Do you know where his office is?" And I didn't need to be escorted back there. Nobody held my hand. They were just like, "Yeah, make yourself at home, whatever." I walk through. I see Erica Beck sitting in her office with the door open. Literally, the doors are open.
So it's an open door government.
City Hall. It's just night and day difference. So
you didn't have to whisper a secret Masonic code word to the doorman in black robes before you proceeded with your candle back there.
I can text the mayor and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about this," and he'll call me. Whereas,
I've even texted him a couple of times since he's been mayor, and he doesn't respond right away.
He'll get.
But usually, within an hour, I'll get a text back from him.
Yeah.
He did something at a meeting one night, and all I said to him was, "I liked what you did on this item," and I can't even remember what it was. And an hour later, I got a text from him. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
It's all just... I don't know what the rhyme or reason is, but we're also still in the honeymoon period here. And
true.
We're still, digging into all the stuff we couldn't get under the old regime. There's a lot of things coming out right now from the Huther administration. From their time. And
that's going to be coming up for a long time.
So maybe,
It's probably a good thing we're building a new treatment plant.
Eventually, this new administration is going to step in it along the way, and we're going to write some unflattering stories about them, and they're not going to be happy. I mean,
that'll be the first test.
Yeah, it'll be a good test, but it strikes TJ Nelson, who's the deputy chief of staff, used to be a stringer photographer for the Argus leader a long time ago. He seems to he's been in PR roles before, so he seems to understand the role of the press, and he doesn't seem to take things personally. I don't think Paul Tenhaken takes things personally.
I don't think he does either.
Judging by how they reacted to negative press during the campaign, you know, they didn't take it personal. The next day was a new day with the media, whereas former Mayor Huther held grudges.
Oh,
big time. So
yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. Speaking of that, you had a story online today about how Mayor Hankin is considering still moving forward with this parking ramp deal.
Yeah. I don't
know
if
there's
any way to get out of it.
Well,
so
I don't know if there is either. One of the things somebody said to me is you get outside counsel. Because, okay, you gotta take this into account. And you know this, Joe. A lot of the same people that were working for Heather and helping to cut this deal are still there. So, Karen Leonard, she was there when this is all going on. You can't tell me she didn't know anything about it. Of course Karen's going to look at Paul and say, oh, we're legally bound here, you know. She isn't going to go around. And I know that there's been some people who have warned Paul that keeping a lot of these Heather people around is not a good idea. Because it's going to end up burning your ass in the end. Because they're going back and telling them, like people like Jill Franken and Sue Kwan back in. They're all Heather soldiers. Don Kearney. They're all going to go back and
but I don't know.
Jeffrey Schmidt. You know,
I don't know. I'm told that there are other people in City Hall with ancillary roles in this, but the primary players, which I wrote today, were Darren Ketchum, Mayor Huther, and Tracy Turback.
Right, and Fifely. But there's still these people around. There's still these people that, you know, they can try to make the best out of this deal. And I think there's some people saying, and I really believe too, they could kill it. Number one, construction hasn't started. Okay? That's the first thing. They've done some utility work, but that's about it. Number two, you can keep the bonds and build an actual parking ramp there and use the money to build a parking ramp that actually has enough spaces to handle growth, you know, and at a reasonable price. There probably would be a penalty, as someone has said to me, you know, there'd probably be a penalty to kill this, to like Lamont or something, or to the bond or whatever. But is it better to just bite the bullet now and pay that penalty and get this to go away? Because this will always be tied, forever be tied to legacy and this fiasco. And if you just cut the cord right now, you're done. And Paul, and you can't blame Paul for this either, because he had nothing to do with it. He can definitely just come out and say, this is our best option to kill this. We have to pay a penalty. It's going to be $1 million. I'm sorry.
We could take some of
if you have an
settlement money from the event center.
No, they already built beer coolers with that.
I thought it was on something.
And so you just say it that way. Otherwise, we're going to be tied to this now for 100 years.
It'll be a monument to this. I mean, most people won't in 20 years. If they build this thing in 20 years, most people don't pay attention, right? So the people that listen to this podcast will.
So you're saying if you build it, they'll forget?
Yeah, they will. And,
and
I'll drive by it and I'll think that thing had quite the story behind it before it got built, you know, and then after.
The thing
most
too
people
is,
won't.
And the 5,000 people that move here next year will be like, yeah, it's a cool building.
Yeah, cool.
Except there's no place to park downtown. They built a $20 million parking ramp, but there's not enough spaces in it.
The Argus Theater is leasing out its parking lot if anybody's interested.
Oh, which one?
They're both up for options. We have the one by Five Guys and the one right across.
Yeah.
They're both on the table.
I got yelled at for walking through an Argus Leader, parking. My wife worked for the Argus Leader, and I dropped something off in her vehicle, and I closed the door, and I think it was the publisher's assistant or something. As I was walking out, berated me about how it's for employee parking only, and I was like, my wife works there, so stop.
Go to hell.
Yeah.
You rebel.
Yeah.
I park in the customer parking spot.
So anyway,
I could say so many disparaging things right now, but I won't.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We don't
I don't think you need to.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. I think you don't need to worry about anybody blocking anyone's spot. No, but I have heard that there's certain people, not city councilors, but there are city councilors. But I've heard that there are certain people in the administration that have been trying to find an angle to kill this.
Well, that's part of what my story was today. They're reviewing it. I don't think there is an escape hatch. I think, I'm just speculating here, the people, Tracy, Turback, Mike Huther, and Darren Ketchum, knew that their time was going to come to an end in a few short months after they passed this thing. And I'm sure they made that thing watertight.
I'm not an attorney, but couldn't you... Here's a couple options that I said you could throw out there. And these would not cost us anything because we have city attorney staff that could do this, and they're sitting there all day anyway. They can do this stuff. My first option was to be send a letter to the construction company that basically says we're thinking about litigation. They don't even have to say they're going to do it. They're going to say we're thinking about it. If you want to go ahead and start construction, you can, but we highly recommend that you don't because we may not pay you.
The contractor.
The contractor that's actually building. Yeah, the contractor that's actually building it. Yeah. That doesn't cost anything. The second thing you could do is you could send a letter that basically says, we are considering litigation and we are awaiting the results of the DOJ investigation, etc., 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 and then we'll make a decision after that whether we want to move forward or not. In other words, we're considering litigation, so we highly suggest you don't start construction. And number two, we highly suggest, because we might not pay you. So I think the city has options that don't cost us anything. And you can just drag this out. As long as the Department of Justice is going to drag the investigation out, the city can do the same thing. You just keep sending letters. All you do is keep sending a letter every 3 months. Yeah, we're still considering
there's cost to that. There's ink, postage.
What's it? Yeah, well, yeah.
Paper.
But that's...
And we all know.
But there's no actual litigation cost. You can just keep dragging it out.
Remember, isn't that the argument that was always used for taking things against taking things slow under Huther?
And eventually,
every day we wait, construction materials.
And eventually, Lamont and Journey would just back out. I think on their own.
I said, I don't know. We might get some really sweet trade deals where construction costs might actually come down in the Trump years. Maybe.
Yeah, because construction safety, workplace safety in South Dakota is only 47 right now.
We could get it at 50.
We get it at 50. A couple more people die.
Why stop there?
I believe in South Dakota. I think we can do it.
We can do it. We can
rally together and try really hard.
But
it's awful, you guys. It's awful.
But yeah. Anyway, there is options there. I think that's the way I look at it. Is that there is things they can do to delay and to stall.
Yeah.
They do it to other people. Dan Daly, they stalled that for 7 years. You know, 7 years.
If there's one thing government's good at, it's stalling.
Yeah. And you just stall the crap out of it, and Journey's going to go, we got other projects.
I mean, I've
Jeff
heard
Lamont's going to go, I got other projects. I don't have time to sit and fight this.
They've stalled EPA water discharge standards for how many years?
That's what I'm saying. If they could just play a game of stalling.
It's very
very easy.
But not every federal I mean, what if nothing more damning comes out? Then you've stalled for no reason.
Oh well.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
I'm just saying we can. What the worst? What's the worst could happen? What's the worst that could happen, Joe? We actually build, like I said, build a parking ramp that meets our needs. That's the worst case scenario. They back out and don't build a hotel. We have this $20 million in the bank. We build an actual parking ramp for a good, $20,000 a stall, not $40,000 a stall, and we get the actual parking needs downtown that we need, and we leave some space next to it. So if somebody wants to build a hotel next to it, they certainly can. It's just not going to be this one.
Well, you should go to public input. Say that.
There's no public input. The executive session we both know the executive session tomorrow that they're going to talk about this in. I'm pretty sure it's what it's about.
Pretty sure it's partner.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know what's going to happen. We do know that they have defenders. We know that Counselor Neitzert's defending it. We know that Christina's defending it. And this whole thing about...
I think they're defending themselves at this point. So.
Well, that too. But I can tell you two things that I heard from both separate things. I've heard from Christine quite a while ago that Paul Sink was... Because she knows him. And that he was tied in with Norm. And he was tied in with the equity building. And he was tied in with Holmgren.
I didn't know he was...
This is stuff that's never been on paper. It's just stuff you hear secondhand from people. Mm-hmm. And she told me this. Neitzert told me that Norm was mentoring, Aaron. That tells me mentoring means a lot of things. It means investing in his construction company. They were using him for all of their projects.
Well, we knew.
So it was kind of like, why would Aaron?
Drake and Holmgren. But what wasn't known or documented was the connection between Sink and Canfield and Holmgren Construction. So
which they owned, right?
Which they owned, and we didn't know Norm Drake had ownership in Holmgren either. We knew there was some relationship, but until they filed bankruptcy, none of this was known.
That's what I'm saying, and we don't know everything else that's going to come out. I think this is all tip of the iceberg. I've heard from people that the DOJ is so deep into this right now that there's something going on.
Right.
That's very serious. And just like I said when we started talking about this, every time something comes up about this, we're going to be tied to this fucking thing. And it's cut the cord now, get it over with.
And certainly Teresa Staley and Pat Starr are pretty well vindicated.
Jan's not in for it either.
Yeah. It's true. Everything Teresa was saying is turning out to be true. Pat Starr, his whole issue wasn't who the developers were. It was he didn't think we were getting enough parking spaces.
We weren't. It's a bad project.
But he should probably cling on to the anti-Holmgren message because the it's a bad project message, aside from who the developers are, doesn't hold water with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, that was never going to be the argument that killed the project. It was, this is who the developers are. That was the thing that caused this public outrage. Mm-hmm. Not the fact that it was $40,000 of parking space.
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting because when I called all the counselors to see, I asked them, did you know your project guarantors, 3 of your 4 project guarantors were owners of Holmgren Construction? And the answer was unequivocally no from Greg, Neitzert, Teresa Staley, and Pat Starr. But I had to phrase the question different ways to Christine and Marshall because they would say, "Wait, I guess I don't quite understand what you're asking."
Oh yeah.
It was a little bit weird. So finally, I had to just say, "Well, it sounds like you didn't know. Is that correct?" And they kind of said, "Yeah, I didn't know." So I'm like, "I'm gonna put you in the no category." It made it easier to write the nut graph, but it was kind of bizarre that it wasn't a quick no response from a couple of them, the same way it was with the 3. So.
I truly believe that it's such a shit deal that the best course of action for Paul would be to cut the cord now, and if anybody jumped his case about it, I'd fucking defend him top to bottom. And because there's been quite a few things that he's done that I'm like, go for it, this is good stuff. And I defend him from top to bottom. And all he has to say is, before my time, and it's a bad deal, and I'm cutting the cord. That guy's not here anymore. I'm the new sheriff. It doesn't have to be a dick about it, but he can just say, I'm the new sheriff, and we're done.
I wonder if there's nothing stopping them. Well, they pulled Holmgren off after they had already approved the deal.
Right.
So they could pull the other guarantors off and replace them with other people. So.
Well, Paul's making it sound like now that they're not a part of it. See, that's the big question everyone's. Well, I know it's not true.
They're certainly a part of it.
Yeah.
Jeff Lamont is running Village River Group, LLC. He's the managing actor in that company.
It's his hotel.
But the fact of the matter is, those 3 who also owned Holmgren Construction are project guarantors, meaning they're personally risking their own money. you wouldn't do that unless you had some reward coming your way, right? So, like, to say, yeah, they're not involved in this project is just total bullshit because their names are on the deal, and they wouldn't be on the deal if they didn't stand to gain.
Well, the story
and
going
that's not the issue. The issue for everybody in this was we I say, like, collectively as a city, the people who were against this, we don't want to do business with people who may have blood on their hands. They're being investigated. They've been fined for reckless practices. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was where the outrage came from. A man died due to.
There are a lot of people mad about the asbestos too, dragging that through town.
The asbestos, and then you turn around and give.
I get it. What you said now earlier.
What's that?
About dragging your asbestos through town from your base.
That was a callback.
Oh, you thought I was telling the truth, and it's like, no, I wasn't.
I get it now.
But
I followed it.
So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who's calling contractors and saying go ahead and do the work, and the fact of the matter is who stands to benefit from this. And the issue that Teresa Staley and some in her camp had was we don't want people making money off of a city project who are not reputable or have a bad track record. It's kind of like when they talk about alcohol licenses, right? Suitable place, or suitable person, or suitable location. Sure, that's a suitable
it's certainly
location.
Not a movie theater.
But it doesn't seem like a suitable... They don't seem like suitable people.
But axe throwing, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, I was pro axe throwing.
I'm not against it either.
I was pro movie theater and pro axe throwing.
Yeah, I'm not against it either. I just think don't let them drink while they're in there. I think you have to be, if you're going to be intellectually honest, you have to allow booze at movie theaters and axe throwing.
Yes.
So
you're here.
Yeah, they look so stupid about that. But just like I said, the Stockburgers are the largest. The Stockburgers are
gun range.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Open bar, baby.
Stockburgers are the largest realtor, one of the largest realtors in the city. They, this guy doesn't even. Did you know the guy who owns Westmount doesn't even live in Sioux Falls?
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's not even a Sioux Falls resident, and I'm sure he's never made a campaign donation to any city councilor either. He's I shouldn't say he's a nobody, but him and his wife just own the movie theater. They live in Madison, South Dakota. I think they live in Madison is where they live.
They own a theater up there too.
Yeah. Oh, they do?
I don't know. Do they?
No, I don't know. And it's like they weren't a player. That's why they didn't get it approved. He had a safety plan. The cops approved it.
Well, I think
they said his safety plan was fine.
I think they probably would have approved it if I didn't write a story that they were pursuing this permit 2 or 3 weeks before they got in front of council, and then a couple of, MAD members got
one lady went up and protested. Yeah. One lady.
They said they got some emails from other people too, but none of that feedback would have happened if we didn't write about it early. So
yeah, and like I said, I'm not against the axe throwing. The only thing that I would have. What I said to Pat is I would have just said no alcohol while you're throwing. Because what's the point in having one beer?
Well, that's kind of what they said. They're in cages without booze when they're
they haven't. No, they can drink in there. They're only allowed to have one beer.
So I have to put my beer down to throw an axe?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
No, the guy
I thought this was... Did we lose a war?
I thought he said that they can only drink one beer an hour while they're throwing, he said.
Yeah, but everybody's... Maybe I'm wrong, but there's these rooms that have cages in them, and that's where you go in the cage to throw, but everybody's in this room for an hour. You're throwing for an hour. It doesn't mean you're in your cage for an hour. So, but the gun range thing, if you go to the Del Rapids Sporting Club, there's usually empty beer cans filling every garbage there.
Yeah.
So,
there's drinking in it.
And I don't think anybody's been shot there since June. So.
Well, I'm still waiting for some chick with flip flops on to drop an axe on her foot and chop her foot off. Like Teresa said to me, it was Teresa or Pat, I can't remember. One of them said, "I just hope they got a good insurance policy."
The libertarian in me says this is going to regulate itself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, if the axe throwers are going to be like sort of culturally responsible, they would only be serving Labatt Blue or Molson. And so then you're right, it would regulate itself.
I'm sorry. I was listening. I was listening to some vintage radio shows, some like sci-fi from the 1960s, speculating about what beyond the year 2000 would be like, and I was just like, I was listening to that, and it's just like the great issues of that time. They figured would be like, laser guns and which planet to colonize next, and I'm like, it's 2018, and we're just kind of like, So do we have to put our bear down to throw an axe inside our cage?
Wait, I can have a beer.
Hey, Galaxy Gaming is expanding.
There you go.
And they have a bigger laser tag. Bigger laser tag.
I can have a beer while throwing an axe, but I can't have a little cheap red wine while watching some crappy movie my wife is dragging me to at the cheap theater in town.
Yeah.
The most bizarre part of that whole thing was Counselor Michelle Erpenbach at the time, like, gave a spiel about how she saw a movie in Denver and was able to have a drink while she had watched the movie, and it was the greatest experience ever. But I don't think we should do that.
I know.
So
That was weird. You're right. That was a weird speech.
Every city in the United States has drinking theaters. It's been in Europe for decades.
It's a good model. It's a good model.
And it's like he said, we're going to ID everybody. What more do you want him to do? Yeah. I made the point to Teresa, the Pavilion has drinking. You can drink while you're watching a show. That's all ages. The Orpheum,
Teresa
the Event Center.
Yeah,
I know. The Event Center. I just said, those are all places that you can drink. How many teenagers do you think are drinking at concerts and general admission at the Event Center? Well, right? Are they policing that? No.
Yeah, their argument was like, well, people don't just drop their kids off at these places. But I went to the Imagine Dragon show. And that felt more like...
why? Did you get free tickets?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
But when you walked in there, it felt more like the circus as far as like with all the kids there and like the glowy stuff and whatever. And they were serving hard drinks. I had like 3 too many. And I was trying to shield myself.
Was it a good show?
It was a good show. Actually.
I wish I would have gone to that.
Me too.
Flaming Lips played the same night. I should have went to that show.
At the District.
I wish I would have gone to the Demi Lovato too, I think, because we need more pop music coming to Sioux Falls.
Demi Lovato. I've never heard such a thing.
Really?
Yeah, what is it?
You've never heard of Demi Lovato?
You haven't heard this story about her? She's
nearly dead.
Didn't she just OD?
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
She just OD'd.
She played in Sioux Falls a couple of years
survived.
ago. Should have gone because
she won't be back.
Okay,
if more people are going to the pop shows, we won't maybe book as many country shows.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
So anything else exciting you think going on City Hall that nobody's really talking about? I've been trying to.
Square stuff's gonna break open here. There's more to that.
I went back there and looked at that.
Well,
I think you could give them some of that property, or not give it to them, sell it to them.
Well,
there's still space to drive a truck back.
The thing about it is that easement's not going anywhere. It's perpetual. So Equity Square LLC, which is a legacy thing.
Yeah.
And
Paul saying Canfield. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that either. Teresa just figured it out the other day.
They're trying to say that, look, if you guys surplus this and somebody builds something there, we're going to lose access to our building.
No, they're not.
Well, the easement is perpetual. It goes with the land no matter what. So if you believe Mike Cooper, who's been around a long time, I've got no reason to think he's lying. Why would he?
Yeah,
no matter what happens there, whoever buys it or whoever ends up owning it has to maintain that.
Right.
So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to surplusing land, there's really only like one criteria the city has to consider to surplus land, and that is, do we need this?
No.
And the answer, according to Mike Cooper and the administration, is no. So the council's decision is pretty well made for them.
Yeah.
But the legacy folks are trying to, confuse the council by saying we're going to lose access to this.
It's retail space. It's downtown space competition. That's why they're fighting it.
Well, I don't know. I think they're going to lose those views. The people who want to develop the Huey building have said that they think it's because Legacy's afraid that these nice patios they built on the back of that building, they'll build something there above that 12 feet mark, and when you look out these patios, you're not going to see up the river quite like you do now. And they say that's the issue. Legacy won't go on record and say they're making this stink over views. They're saying it's because, what about garbage trucks? We need to be able to get a garbage truck in there. We need to have... We
got some more asbestos to remove. We need to be able to get our trucks in there.
They say they say they could have a restaurant on the first floor at some point.
They keep saying that. Who's going to put a restaurant
They need the loading bays there's a loading bay back there, and they need to have access for a truck to back up.
That makes sense.
And they would probably lose that loading bay if you'd lose access for that. But the Huey building folks say that, and I haven't vetted this yet, but they say every single restaurant that's downtown doesn't use a loading dock because companies like Cisco and those food delivery companies do use dollies in dense urban areas like that.
They do daily deliveries.
And to the Huey building people, that argument is disingenuous. Another argument that they say has been made to them is the garbage trucks. They're worried about garbage truck access, but only garbage trucks don't use regular garbage trucks downtown. I think only one company serves downtown, and they have a special technology they use to get into tight areas. So I have yet to determine if that's
it's competition. Argument. They just don't want them to develop the building because it's competition with
and I think that they shouldn't do it because developing the building will make Equity Square all the more desirable. I mean, the Huey building has been there a long time. People may not be so quick to jump into it. They're like, okay, well, this feels a little bit off the beaten path from the rest of downtown. But if an upgrade...
I agree with you. To make the Equity building, it would make it more appealing.
Yeah, probably raise the rent on their folks, too.
Yeah, it's just... I don't know. Any other controversies? I haven't,
I don't know. Hopefully...
TJ cussing anybody out on Facebook lately?
No, just Patrick Anderson, but
he got into it with Patrick Anderson.
On the tweet, you got to get on Twitter.
They got into a tweet war?
Well, Rebecca Tusher wrote the story about the wastewater district stuff. In Panda, we call him Panda. That's his nickname.
Yeah.
Patrick Anderson. He took some data from the story and was like shining a light on the fact that the city isn't adhering to these standards or whatever. And TJ Nelson took issue with some of his tweets, so they went back and forth. And Panda said something like, I'm always happy to talk to a government official, but don't you tell me how to do my job, or something like that. It got kind of fiery, and I was in a meeting when this was going on, and I came back, and I was like, what did I miss here? And I saw the tweet, so I texted TJ, and I said, I see you met my friend Patrick. And I think it's all water under the bridge now, but I was thinking...
But what kind... Is it wastewater under the bridge? Because you missed a golden opportunity to make the joke.
It's shitty water.
It's wastewater under the bridge.
I saw some kids swimming right by Falls Landing the other day, and I said, get out of... I was on the bike trail, I go, get out of there. They're up to their chins, and I go, get out of there.
And they were like... money for their money.
They were like, what? And I go, that's like swimming in a toilet. I said, that's like pooping in a toilet.
Come on.
Yeah.
We used to swim in the river when I was a kid up by Dells. There's a trestle bridge that's probably 50, 60 feet above the water, and we would jump off there. And I always joke that you'd probably come out of the water with like a third arm at some point.
No, and you probably end up with some bacteria that eats your brain because it went up your nose.
Yeah.
Maybe. But it's funny because
you never end up with the cool powers.
The safe place to jump off the bridge was marked by a bullet hole. So apparently, like, somebody had jumped too far to the right or the left and like scraped themselves on the way down. So the next time they went up, they marked it with a bullet hole. It's still there.
It's North Minnehaha County.
Well, I have kind of an announcement to make before we close it up. This was Patrick Lally's brother's idea because he books music at Club David. So we're going to try it for the month of August. The owner of Club David said, I'll let you guys do August. We'll see how it goes. We're going to do live commentary to the city council meetings. So if you come over to Club David, it'll start August 7th.
So this is like an MST3K thing with city council.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So
that's awesome.
So it's going to be Patrick, Matt Staub, and me. And we're going to do live commentary.
How are any of you going to get a word in edgewise?
Yeah.
I know. And then we're going to have bingo cards. Briggs Warren is doing city council bingo for us. So we're going to have bingo cards, and then we're going to have a big... It's a pretty big screen.
So you're going to do
this is at Club David?
For August. We're going to try it for August.
So you won't be at public input then?
I haven't been there for a while. I go to the informationals. I love it. Because I can chew their ass right there. It's great. Well, it's relevant. So they go up and do their presentation. And then you can go up right after their presentation and go,
shoot it down.
There's no reason to go. And have you watched public input lately at the regular meeting? What the hell? Even me, who was criticized for what it used to be, this is like a frickin' circus.
Heather Pastor and James Reed?
Oh, there's more than that. But, Sierra said it best. The county is where you go to get your, where you get...
Human services.
Human services. The city council can't do anything for you.
Right. Well, that Catherine,
and I know...
Catherine Gripple says they should do something for that.
I've been helping these homeless people for 90 years.
Shame on you.
We'll put up tents in my yard, and it's like, you can't do that, really.
That's against code.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of
That's against code.
And,
It's funny.
We should just ban homeless people. I mean, just kidding. I mean, I'm kidding.
I know.
Well, my dad had a solution to solve homelessness.
But
You go down and you get a bullhorn. You say, "Go home."
But here's my complaint.
Magically
and
solved. That's home.
Here's my one complaint, and we're kind of making fun, okay, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, they have a right to come to public input, and just because they're homeless, and I agree. I don't have a problem with that. Anybody has a right to come up there. My thing is if you're gonna come to public input to a government meeting that's being filmed to ask for assistance of whatever, don't put your $600 cell phone up on the podium. That's the part that cracks me up. I'll watch them. They'll walk up there. They'll whip down their friggin' otter case, their friggin' $100 otter case, and their $700 phone on the podium. I need help. You need not to have a $700 phone.
Obama
that would be your first.
Right?
Yeah,
Is that what they call those?
What's
Obama
that?
phones?
Obama phones. So that would be my first. That would be my first. My first suggestion if you're going to come and ask for help. So.
Yeah. Well. So who are the other highlights from public input that you like? Steven Ciano.
Oh God, you are killing me. You will have murder. You will have blood on your hands. And I always sit there and kind of think. The best part, I'm just going to say this, and if we have to cut this out, that's fine. If I get too carried away, Robert.
I'm watching.
I always say to Pat and Bruce, I always like it when Steven's up there. He gives the same speech every week. And I said, I always like it when he says, "They said I was delusional." And I'm like, you are delusional! Listen to them!
I like it when he drops Eagles references into his public input.
Eagles?
Sometimes he'll drop music lyrics.
What?
And he'll be like, the great Don Henley once said, or whatever.
Yep.
He's not a dumb guy.
All she wants to do is...
I know some people who know him. He's not a dummy. He's kind of
high... He's got Asperger's.
Yeah, so he's
smart,
high functioning. He's very high functioning, but, I mean... And when he's sitting there telling them that they're murdering him, and it's like, do you realize that after you're dead, there's really not much you're going to be able to do about this team now, Well,
the security always perks up when he walks in the room.
It's that backpack. That worries the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. And that's the other thing that always made me laugh about limiting public input, because Marshall, we're worried about the potty words. It's like, did you know you can bring a loaded gun, concealed loaded weapon into any public building in Sioux Falls, and except the courthouse, and there's not a fucking thing they can do about it?
Yeah.
Let's raise our hands and say, who's worried about that? I am.
You're worried about somebody saying, "Gosh darn."
Yeah, you're worried about someone saying "son of a bitch."
Didn't Todd Epp from Keller Radio?
Oh, he wanted metal detectors, and I'm the one that told him.
Yeah, we pointed out you can already bring guns in there, man.
Yeah, it wouldn't do any good.
Really?
Yeah,
state legislature. Then you know who had the gun.
Heath had to take the signs down. Remember that?
What's that?
Heath was pissed. He had to take the signs down. He had a sign. He had a sign in the Carnegie, and there was a sign at City Hall that said no guns allowed, and he had to take them down because state law said nope. You can bring concealed weapon into, but you can't to the courthouse. See, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, if you can't bring it into the courthouse, why should you be able to bring it in? You should be able to bring it into Carnegie or something like that.
At the State House.
You can't bring it in there either, can you?
Larry Roden actually pulled the fire alarm to prove a point. He was trying to get it.
Oh, that's right.
So they were trying to pass a law that would allow guns in chambers up in Pierre, and it died. But
I'm all for
during
it.
debate, he hit the alarm button,
like the panic button.
the panic button to prove like
the
to
slow
see-
response time.
yeah.
But it
Right.
wasn't a slower. Didn't they respond pretty
no,
fast?
Sergeant in arms were like there.
It was a slow response time because they were sort of like kind of tipped off. They kind of knew that it was coming, so they didn't like rush in there, which they should have just rushed in there
Right.
and
As
really
soon as they
inconvenienced everybody. Got to tell everybody to get down, put the Capitol on lockdown, until we
heard it.
figure
And
out what's
then give him a
happening.
fine.
I'm
Right,
going
and
to
then
tell
give them
you,
a fine. Right.
I'm all for them having guns at Capitol. I am. I'm all for it because maybe they'll just eliminate themselves one of these days. It'd be like the South Dakota State Legislature now is half because they decided to have a gunfight.
Well, firearms don't really bother me, so
Yeah.
Anybody who's carrying. Like I saw a guy at a grocery store
I see people
with
at
a
the grocery
gun,
store all
right?
the
And
time.
I could tell
At the grocery store
somebody
all the
that
time.
saw it was a little like, oh, their guy's gun. But if he was gonna shoot somebody, he'd already be shooting. So
I was standing in line. Speaking of that, I was standing in line at Slumshine one day, and this girl in front of me in her 20s, and she had a gun on a holster. It wasn't concealed. It was on her waist, and it was a pink 9mm in a little white holster.
Matched your shoe.
And the first thing I thought when I looked at her was like, I don't think you have to worry about being attacked. And
Boom.
Well, yeah, 'cause she's
I didn't say
carrying.
that.
Open.
And so
Yeah.
I'm standing there, and then she's in front of me, and I'm just looking over it, and I'm kind of chuckling. And, like, you're so cool. And, and then I get, and she's still grabbing her stuff as I'm checking through, and the cashier says to me, how you doing today? I said, I feel really safe right now. Just super safe. And I just looked over at this girl, and she's just like this. She thought I was complimenting her. It's just
It
like,
was a
"What's up?"
compliment.
I'm glad
Feel
you-
super safe.
Yeah.
The pink 9mm girl.
On that, you've got a hard end.
Yeah,
Yep.
I do need to leave. So
You have a hard end too.
I do.
We gotta go pick up your new toy.
That's
But
right.
yeah, if throughout the whole pretty much month of August, watch Jonathan Ellis's Twitter handle and Patrick Anderson's because they're going to be filling in for me. I leave I leave on the 8th and I don't return until the 4th of September.
Yeah, I heard you're gonna be gone for a while.
So that's at Argus Jealous.
Is that it?
I think so.
And then
At
P. Anderson.
P.
maybe?
Anderson.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes. I'll get those looked at.
you don't have to.
I'll retweet that stuff.
You have fun on your vacation.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'll come back
Thank
anytime.
you. A production of the SiouxEmpire.com.